North Korea, a nation that was once a socialist nirvana. But then it became a country run like an organized crime family.
Essentially, North Korea is a criminal racket. That is how the regime makes its money.
It's engaged in a variety of illicit activities.
Selling arms, smuggling of drugs, counterfeiting of US bills.
Rare animal species.
Fake cigarettes.
Methamphetamines. This is a very sophisticated operation to fund the regime and fund its nuclear program.
This is the story of how one small nation, driven by desperation and greed, became a global hub of crime and chaos. Join me on a journey into the darkness as we uncover the evil crimes of North Korea. It's a chilly evening in Stockholm, and a North Korean diplomat, Gil Jae-gyong, is about to be caught red-handed. But he's not the only one. Swedish authorities have been tipped off about suspicious activity involving North Korean officials across Scandinavia. Unbeknownst to the North Korean government, over 100 police officers have been working for months in a specialized task force for this very moment. As night falls, a coordinated raid begins. Police smash their way through an auto supply store and 9 other homes and businesses.
Everybody freeze. We are the Swedish police and we have a warrant to search the property.
And what they uncover is shocking.
The North Koreans are involved in a major scandal on the Scandinavian peninsula, flogging cigarettes and exporting whiskey.
However, this raid is just one of many that occurs over the week. Denmark, Norway, Finland. In total, 17 members of North Korean embassies are kicked out for smuggling alcohol, cigarettes, and shockingly, 147 kilograms of the drug hash. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. Shortly after, Egyptian authorities catch another 2 diplomats with 400 kilograms of hash. Suddenly, and without apology, over and over, all around the world, more North Korean diplomats were being arrested for smuggling drugs and counterfeit items. And the word on the street was that the North Korean government put them up to it. Whoa. Are you really suggesting that the North Korean government sent these guys over to Scandinavia exclusively to smuggle drugs? Oh, that's literally what I just said. It's a pretty big call, buddy. I think you're going to need some proof. So I'm kind of like in the middle of explaining that. So you just let me get back to it. I'll show you. Okay, where were we? In order to understand how North Korea got to this desperate place, we need to go back to the early days of this nation, specifically 1955, when this guy was in power, Kim Il-sung. He's a pretty important piece of this story, and at this point in time, he had really strong ideas about how he wanted this nation to be run. And in order to explain that a little bit further, I've got my friend Maya to break it down.
First leader of North Korea, Mr. Kim Il-sung, built a nation from the ground up when the war was done. Now he's 55, he got something on his mind, a new ideology, future for mankind. Average height, commanding presence when he takes the stage. About to drop this concept, I will write the next page. This is Kim Il-sung's gift, straight from his mind. Leave the old ways and foreign thoughts behind. Think for yourself and solve your problems on your own. That's the message that we scream until it rattles your bones. Total dedication, absolutely no hesitation. Building up the brand new nation with no imitation. Working dawn till darkness, that's the price we pay. No complaining, no explaining, that's the only way. See, this ideology is burned into our DNA. Self-reliance coursing through our veins every day. Yeah.
That was sick. Thank you, Maya. So Kim Il-sung is on an absolute mission. He wants his people to unite. He wants them to sacrifice. He wants them to work hard so they can stick it to South Korea. And in doing so, show the rest of the world that his ideology, this Juche ideology, really works. And the crazy thing is, in the beginning, it works.
North Korea in the aftermath of the Korean War actually was better off economically than South Korea.
That's right. The North had a higher GDP, longer life expectancy, and a self-reported near 100% literacy rate. Oh, what a time to be alive. But little did they know this golden age would be the last time that North Korea would ever beat the South. To further fund their expansion and major building plans, they borrowed heavily from Sweden, West Germany, Japan, and other nations, planning to pay back the loans with their abundant mineral resources. But then, something unexpected happened.
The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries imposed its boycott and within a year raised prices more than 300%.
An oil crisis in the Middle East sparked fuel shortages and inflation worldwide. Suddenly, demand for Korea's natural resources began to plummet, and they could no longer pay back their loans. North Korea was teetering on the edge, and Kim Il-sung, he began to worry. Factories that once hummed with productivity ground to a halt. Resources thinned and debts to foreign nations piled up. By the mid-1970s, North Korea had defaulted on many of their loans, now totaling around $2 billion. This meant that they were unable to access any more international credit, and many nations simply chose not to do business with them anymore, their reputation in tatters. For the great leader Kim Il-sung, the leader who had promised a future of independence and strength, it was a moment of reckoning. He faced the bitter truth. Juche was failing and North Korea was self-destructing. But Kim Il-sung had one desperate idea left. His focus shifts to his son, Kim Jong-il, his untested protege. With the economy in shambles and the country's very survival at stake, Kim Jong-il was put in charge of creating a secretive organization that was given free rein to operate outside the bounds of international law. Its only mission was to bring hard cash back into North Korea. This secret organization was called Office 39, but it's also known as Bureau 39, Room 39, or Division 39.
김정일 국방위원장이 취임을 하면서 노동당 재정경리부 3층 9호실에 이름을 따서 39호실이라고 만들었다는 설이 있고.
To any prominent North Korean exile, and they'll all tell you that Bureau 39 is absolutely crucial in earning revenues for the North Korean regime. It's absolutely vital.
Korea has this thing called Bureau 39, which is basically the sort of state's ministry of organized crime.
All the communication system, everything can do.
Is Room 39, which is the code name for a highly secretive bureau. It's estimated to bring in anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion annually.
Do you remember all those diplomats that were deported for smuggling alcohol and drugs around the world? They were working directly for Bureau 39.
Well, North Korean embassies have a diplomatic function, but that's often mainly ceremonial. But their true function is financial. It's also illegal, mainly. North Korean diplomats are basically cash carriers for Kim. They're entrepreneurs, they're businessmen. They may be drug lords, they may be weapons smugglers, but they carry a diplomatic passport, so you can't touch them.
To anyone paying attention, it was clear that the Kims were using their diplomats to move illegal goods, knowing that if they were caught, they wouldn't be arrested. They would only face deportation. But drug trafficking was just one part of a complicated criminal enterprise that was being run by Bureau 39. And as you go down the rabbit hole, it gets a whole lot worse.
North Korea started its production of drugs secretly in the late 1970s in the mountainous Hamgyong and Yangkang provinces. Kim Il-sung told the people to earn hard currency by growing and selling opium because he needed cash. All opium produced in these farms were sent to the government to be processed into heroin.
What kind of nation would prioritize growing opium over using that land to feed its people? And if they were capable of that, what else were they capable of? As the 1980s rolled around, Kim Il-sung entered his later years and he began to gradually step back from his role as the leader of North Korea.
Kim Jong-il was already wielding real power in the country in April 1980, while Kim Il-sung was no more than a symbolic figure.
This is also when North Korea's criminal enterprises were in full swing.
Clinton's aide said Tuesday the regime of Kim Jong-il may be making significant shipments of small arms and other lethal hardware to Burma.
Sky News investigations uncovered evidence that North Korean government officials are involved in trafficking drugs. Heroin, methamphetamine and ecstasy are being smuggled over the country's border.
민주공화국에 있었는데 돈을 찍는 공장을 가지고 있습니다. 미국 외화를 달러를 찍어냈습니다. 1달러짜리 지폐를 사서, 그건 진폐입니다. 1달러짜리를 지워버리고 그 위에 100달러짜리를 인쇄하는 방법으로 처음엔 그렇게 썼어요.
Bureau 39 had become a black market behemoth, but shockingly, the money being brought in wasn't being used to take care of the people of North Korea. It was split into two buckets. First, to develop their nuclear capabilities, which they took a major step towards in 1986 when they built their first reactor in Yongbyon. And secondly, to buy loyalty within the Workers' Party and allow Kim Jong-il to live a lavish lifestyle.
He was having lobster flown in. He was dining on French wine. He was Hennessy's largest single paying customer. This man liked his good food, you know. What's all that noise? Oh, it's the starving masses. Oh, God. You know, he was literally like that. It's the kind of evil where there is no feeling. There's just emptiness. Those starving people howling out there mean nothing to me.
And for the everyday citizen of North Korea, it was about to get a whole lot worse. In 1994, the country suffers a major blow. Its fearless leader Kim Il-sung dies, putting his son Kim Jong-il in charge. This was an absolutely terrible time to take the reins, as the Soviet Union had collapsed years earlier, basically paralyzing North Korea.
With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the welfare payments that stopped going to them, and the fact that they were the only communist nation to default in their loans, everyone started to demand getting payment in hard currency, which they did not have. So they lost gasoline shipments, and once you lose gasoline, you lose electricity, and once you lose electricity, you're done.
This, combined with bad weather, sends the country into a devastating famine known as the Arduous March.
Disastrous floods mean North Korea is desperately short of food. Many now rely on international aid to survive.
There were complaints that during the famine, we should be growing grain, not poppies. But the instruction from the central government was that if we grow poppies, we can sell the product for 10 times as much to buy grain. This country is so desperate to go on, they will do anything to survive. 99% of the factories are not operating. There are no raw materials and no energy. Even fishing boats can't fish because there is no oil for fuel.
We know there's been a terrible famine in North Korea. 2 million are believed to have perished. More than half the population doesn't have enough to eat.
The Red Cross estimates that almost half of North Korean babies will die before they're 5.
Estimates vary for the number that died, but even the regime itself admitted that almost 250,000 perished between 1995 and 1998. Some say it was more like 10 times that figure.
The thought of greed and ego being so strong in one person that you would literally let your own people starve makes me sick to my stomach. Especially because during this time, the propaganda machine was in full force.
The overriding concern of Kim Jong-il's activity is the well-being of the people, including workers, and on his inspection trips across the country, he always calls at dormitories and dwelling homes to look closely into the people's living conditions. Everyone who had an opportunity to meet Kim Jong-il said to him earnestly, "Please don't worry about our living. When we are through with hardship, we'll be well off. Our only wish is your good health."
Weirdly, North Korea would eventually bluff its way to some aid in exchange for stopping their nuclear program.
Kim Jong-il finally agreed to disable the nuclear reactor at Yongbyon in return for fuel and better relations with the US.
But actually, most of the food went to the military, and in reality, they had no intention of stopping their nuclear program at all.
As is now well known, however, the Geneva Nuclear Accords were nothing more than North Korea's deceptive attempt to stall for time. As Kang Sok-ju was leaving negotiations in Geneva, Kim Jong-il gave him the following order. What we need is time. Buy us more. From the beginning, Kim had no intention of adhering to the accords and was just trying to buy more time.
It was clear Kim Jong-il desperately wanted North Korea to achieve nuclear status. And well, in 2006, he made that a reality.
North Korea says it's carried out its first ever test of a nuclear weapon, sparking a wave of condemnation from the international community.
The main point is that North Korea should understand how strongly the United States and many other council members feel that they should not test this nuclear device.
Their choice to make. What these firing of the rockets have done is they've isolated themselves further. And that's sad for the people of North Korea.
For Kim Jong-il, achieving nuclear power was his final legacy. And then, a few years later, he was gone.
위대한 용도자 김정일 동지께서 주체 100 2011년 12월 17일 8시 30분에
With the death of Kim Jong-il, the mantle had to be passed again. Now onto the third generation of Kims. And during this transitionary period, there was a small, but still a glimmer of hope for the newest Kim, Kim Jong-un. A hope that he could mend relationships between North Korea and the West. After all, he was young, he was educated in Switzerland, and he seemed open to change. But you guys know how this story ends. The youngest Kim, Kim Jong-un, never fully mended those relationships, and today, North Korea is still one of the most highly sanctioned countries in the world. Many of their people are still starving. They are controlled by the government with limited access to healthcare and electricity with no way out. And what of Bureau 39, the criminal organization that Kim Jong-il set up all those decades ago? Well, I guess you could say business is thriving.
No, talking about trade, I want to show you a picture. We got a picture of Kim Jong-un in his Mercedes. Please, Harry, tell me, how does he buy that? I mean, honestly, someone's got to sell it to him. If we take his Mercedes away, you know, I tell you right now who'll come to the tape. I mean, if you start plucking away some of the stuff from Office 39, that probably came through Office 39.